Now, can you see that there, Tommy, is it loading?
Yeah, it's on there now.
Yeah, okay. So for anyone that wasn't on it during the summer, I'm just going to give a brief introduction to myself, okay? So my new role in Westmeath is Performance GDA, okay? I also have a role as GA Officer, Games Development Officer in AIT, but the other part of my role is I'm over the strength and conditioning for the underage development. Obviously, this year was hard to get things up and running, but thankfully it's given us a great opportunity to get plans in place for when we do start up again next year. Another positive we have for the S&C side, we have 4 interns coming in with us from February, okay? And we hope to be rolling them out because the development squads aren't going to be, we don't know when they'll be back together. We're going to be getting them out into the post-primary schools for strength and conditioning, and also out to the clubs for club workshops, okay, and performance workshops. So it is looking up, and again we'll have the numbers in, and we will have a framework in place. My club is Maryland. I'm 29 for the moment. I'm still holding on to it. I've another 2 weeks left. I've been part of the Westmeath senior panel since 2009. And I qualified here in AIT in 2017. I graduated in sports science and exercise physiology. Okay, so just like the last day, I started off with a quote, and I have 2 pictures there on the side. So developing athletic development takes time, okay? And the simple thing is we worry about what children will be tomorrow, yet we forget what he or she is someone today, okay? So with that, we don't want to be developing them for tomorrow, okay? It's a long path down the line. So we forget sometimes what we can do with them today, okay? Sometimes we have to look at the bigger picture, but we see down here with Ger Egan, okay, it's a simple example. That was probably one of his first games with Westmeath, okay, to where he is now, okay? And that took 8 or 9 years, all right? It just doesn't happen overnight. He's one of the best footballers in the county because he worked at the right thing, and he didn't rush into it. Okay, unfortunately he's out with injury now with his knee, but you can see the difference there by doing the right framework and during the right set of time, the benefits it can have. Okay, so the outcomes of this is the stages of training and the purpose of resistance training, and more importantly, the GA15 warm-up, okay? A lot of people, the GA15 warm-up was brought out, I'll go into more detail with it, but a lot of people think it's just for development squads. But our main goal is to get the clubs buying into it, to start the S&C with your under 13s upwards through the GA15 program, that when they do come to that stage of training to train, they're ready to go. Okay? So our stages of training, they start from about 5 to 6 years of age. All right? So we call this the initiation stage, or your fundamental. Okay, so this is our nursery groups. So we all heard of the fundamental movement skills. We have our ABCs: agility, balance, coordination. Your RJTs is running, jumping, and throwing. So this starts from your 6 to 10 years of age. So we can see there the fundamental, the FUN is highlighted, or it's in capital letters in fun, that everything they're learning is through game-based, okay? After that, game-based and activities. After that, we move on to the train and the train stage. This is probably one of the most important stages. So you're looking from 11 to 14, maybe sometimes up to 15, depending on the athlete's biological age, okay? So training to compete, you're looking from 15 up to 20-year-old, okay? So the main areas we are going to be looking at is training to train and bridging into your training to compete from our 12 to 17, okay? And then obviously from 21 plus, it's your training to win stage. So then you're going to your high performance stage. So our train stage is very crucial, okay? So during this crucial phase, the program should be more structured. So like in the nurseries, as we said, it's all fun-based games, activities that they're learning their ABCs, learning their RJTs, but they don't know that they're learning them, okay? They're having fun in the games. They're down picking up a ball. They're learning balance and coordination, but they don't know that, okay? But when we come into our training to train stage, it's all about learning, okay? They know what they're doing. So it has to be more structured with a focus on developing relative body weight strength, okay? And this is what we want to focus on this stage, is our body weight strength, okay? Stability capabilities and correct exercise technique. A lot of us try to rush into their programs and adding weight, getting them strong, where this is where we get them confident in their movement with their body weight and their stability capabilities. So joint stability, okay, that they're confident in their landings, their jumping, okay. And this, by corrective technique, aim to maximizing long-term results, okay. So this is where the long-term results start. The training to train phase is where the athletes are exposed to fundamental exercises, okay, so your basic exercises that will target the required muscle groups in a general aspect, okay. So we have multi-joint highlighted in yellow. Exercises are both time effective and target muscle groups in a more comprehensive fashion. So when we talk about multi-joint exercises, we're talking the likes of your squat, where we're using our hip joints, our knee joints, and our ankle joints, okay. We're also talking about your lunge. You're working again your hip flexion, knee flexion, and dorsiflexion of the ankles, okay. So with that, them simple exercises with multi-joint, we're working our glutes, our quads, our hamstrings, our calves, and we're also getting joint stability as well, okay. So little exercise like that using joint mobility or multi-joint exercise can take half the time compared to single muscle exercises, okay. So again, like we said in the fundamental, it's they don't know they're learning, where this exercise is chosen should provide learning opportunities, okay, that they know that they're able to progress it and break it down and learn from it. We don't want to avoid working through dozens of exercises, okay. So at this stage, we don't want to be going straight into circuits that they're horsing out loads of squats, loads of lunges, and they don't know what they're doing. We want to encourage good technique, okay. The likes of circuit trainings do not encourage good technique, okay. And it's crucial to athletes' technical development that will be the development of body awareness, okay. So this is crucial, body awareness skills, okay, coordination, balance, but they should have a good confidence from that, from the nurseries, from their fundamental movement skills, okay, working on the ability, agility, balance, coordination, mobility, and stability. So coordination is being able to use different body limbs at the same time in a controlled way, okay, that they're able to do different movements controlled, and balance comes into that as well. The next stage we move on to is your training to compete, okay. So this is from 15, maybe 16 upwards, depending on the groups you have and depending on their biological age, okay. So we break people up into different ages, okay. So you have a chronological age, which is the age they actually are on their birth cert, but their biological age is the age that they are developed to, all right. So you could have an athlete at 15 years of age, chronological age at 15, but their biological age could be 16 to 17 or it could be 13 to 14, okay. So you could have a group of 10 lads from chronological age of 15, but there could be 3 to 4 years of a biological age in the difference. So it's very important that we get the training to train stage correct and their body and they're confident in the movements, because the likes of your biological age could have a huge effect on on the next stage, because some will be stronger than others. They'll find it easy. They'll find it easy to add more force or add more weight onto the S&C program. So at this stage, the S&C program can commence with the introduction of increased external loading and to maximize strength. All right. So this is where we can add a bit more of an external load. So if we go back to the previous, can anyone tell me what the external load was we used on the previous stage? Okay, we're using body weight, but there is an external load. If anyone wants to answer that, you can just type it in. there any answers in there, Tommy?
Nothing yet.
Okay. So if no one really knows, so the external load we use for body weight exercise is gravity, okay? We're pushing against gravity, that's the external load. So if we're onto the training to compete stage, we're going to increase the external load. Can anyone ask me what can we use to increase the external load instead of gravity? We use them the whole time in the gyms. So you want to?
We've weights in, Kieran.
Yeah. What type of weights? We don't always have to use weights. Okay, so we have weights. You have different types of weights. All right. So you have your dumbbells. Is there anything else in?
Yeah, we have Ronan has free or fixed weights, so that
yeah.
Resistance bands here as well.
Resistance bands was one of the main things I'm looking for. Okay, we always don't have to go on to weights. Resistance band still adds increased external loading. You also have kettlebells, you have medicine balls, okay, dumbbells. So there is so many. We don't always have to have weights. If we wanted to work on this with someone in our club, with a team in our club, the simple thing is resistance bands, medicine balls, kettlebells, okay? We all little things like that can have a big effect, okay? The body awareness skills, or your postural skills and flexibility ranges established during the development phase need to be maintained. When we're adding external weight, we're putting more force and more pressure on the muscles, which does make them tighten up, okay? So it's very important that the more gym we do with adding external loading, we have to compensate by stretching more, okay? The more load you put in a muscle, the more it's going to break down, the tighter it's going to get. So it's very important the flexibility we get from the phase before this, training to train phase, is maintained through more stretching, okay, and increase the stretching. And at this stage, the fundamental exercise used to target the required muscle groups should have been mastered, okay? So the basic movements, I'm going to go through the list yet, of exercises should be mastered before we move on to this stage. So what are the basic movements? Okay, I'll come back to that. The basic movements we have are here. Okay, your squat. So as a human, your body moves in pretty much the same ways. There are 6 basic movement patterns, or your fundamental movement patterns. Whatever program you get, or whatever exercise you were given, if there's 300 different types of exercises out there, they all come back to this 6. So it's very important from that age of 11 to 14 years of age, we have them fully confident and mastered in these, okay? Your squat, your hinge, lunge, push and pull and plank, okay? Plank or pillar, it's your work in your core. So squat can be developed into loads of different. You have your sumo squats, your split squats, okay? Hinge is your RDL, single RGL, deadlift. Lunge, you have your frontal lunge, reverse lunge, side lunge, okay? Push can be your push press into your press up, bench press. Pull, you have inverted rows, bent over rows. You can, list goes on and on. Planks, you have Supermans, okay? So no matter what exercise you're given, breaks down to this 6. So imagine if we had everyone in the whole county, club up to development squads, from 11 to 15, fully competent in these 6 exercises. By the time we want to move them on to the next stage, we can go straight into it instead of going back to the very start. And that can be a problem with clubs or with county teams. Lads are brought in and they're not at the standard where we want them to be. But if we have this in place, it can make a big difference. Okay, so the purposes of resistance training. Okay, we can see a full list there. But the main ones we want to focus on at this age, from your 11 up to 17 or 12 up to 17, are highlighted in yellow. Okay, mobility and stability. Okay, you're starting into your strength, postural control, functional competency, and balance. The more we delve into it, the older they get, the rest will start coming into it. Okay, but the ones in yellow are the main ones we want to focus on at this stage. Okay, so the youth athlete, children and youth athletes benefit most from programs that improve body limb control and joint stability, what we've been working on. And these programs also inadvertently improve other outcomes. Okay, so by just working on body limb control and joint stability, we can also work on improve other outcomes, strength endurance and general strength. Okay, and that's at the end goal. We want to focus on that, but by just working on them two, we're working on a lot of others. Okay, and this is without specific training of those outcomes. All right, so that's where the GA15 warm-up comes in place. All right, so GA15 was brought in a couple of years ago. In fairness, Leinster and the GA have been trying to push this for a long time, and I don't know why it hasn't picked up. Okay, because senior county teams are doing this at the moment. All right, but it's a great introduction method for young athletes into S&C. Okay, the main reason it was brought in, it's an injury prevention program. Okay, it's done during a warm-up. It was designed through different warm-ups, through different governing bodies around the world. So FIFA 11 was in it, plus you have your F mark and PEP. The program, okay, so the warm-up incorporates core strength, proprioception, balance and body awareness, and also has plyometric drills, which are introducing them to a small bit of power. We're working on joint stability. So plyometric drills is just the likes of your jumping and speed, which brings in joint stability, landing, and it's introduced into your power, okay, with the main focus of being good postural alignment during exercise. So again, in this warm-up we can complete, we're always focusing on good technique and good postural alignment, okay? So it's broke down into a few components, okay? So obviously your part A. Now it is very important, one of the good reasons why we do this is we have kids in school all day. Okay, so they're in school from 8, they're sitting on the bus probably from 8:30 into the school till 4 o'clock and on a bus home. Then they're arriving up to the football pitch or hurling pitch to go training. And they're sitting on a chair all day, their hamstrings are asleep, their glutes are asleep, okay? The GA15 incorporates activation work to wake up the muscles. 90% of injuries, muscle tears, come from a muscle overloading or working too hard. So the likes of that is probably one of the main thing is their hamstrings. And a lot of the reason why that is that we're sitting on a chair all day, our glutes are asleep, and the glutes is probably our main muscle for running and power and speed. And if our glutes are asleep, our hamstrings are working twice as hard. And we'll see come to the end of the game, if your hamstrings are constantly working twice as hard, they'll fatigue, and then you'll make that run and they'll tear. All right? So it's very important that when we get to the pitch, we wake up all the muscles and get them working. All right? So part A is our running and our loosening. So part B and part E are our strength and conditioning work. Okay? So our plyometrics comes in our jumping and balance. So your single leg jumping and balancing. You also have your jumping on a single leg and your players pushing each other to coordination and balance. I'm not going to go into too much detail because all this information is up online. There's videos on YouTube. All the exercises are broke down to exactly what you need to be doing. We also will be running GA15 workshops around to the clubs, so that the clubs are starting the S&C, and then that every player is getting it, that not only the players that are brought into the development squads are doing it, that every player in the county from 12 to 15 will be getting their S&C. Okay, we can hand out programs, all left, right, and center. But this is the best way to introduce them to S&C because they're there at the pitch, they're ready. It takes 15-20 minutes. So the impact that this can have. So obviously our warm-up is there for an athlete for upcoming training and competition that can improve performance while potentially lessening the risk of injury. Okay, so we went through them movements that are all in the GA15 warm-up and are the basis of every exercise we need to do. Okay, so just a simple thing, the impact that this can have. All right, so the warm-up provides an excellent opportunity for the development of functional competency and body weight strength. Okay, so again, we're focusing on that 12 to 15 years of age, okay, or training to train stage. So in a 10 to 15 minute warm-up, players can get up to 100 to 150 repetitions, which is a lot. If we go into the gym in the morning, 100 and 150 is a lot, but when it's body weight, we can afford to do that bit more, okay? So 2 warm-ups per week will give us 200 to 300 per week. And then we're going into big numbers here. So 4 weeks in a month, if we maintain that warm-up of two warm-ups per week, we're looking at 800 to 1200 per month. And over a bigger picture, we're looking at over a year, we could get 8,000 to 12,000 repetitions per year. Okay, so by doing that, we're increasing functional competency and we're also increasing performance. Okay. Has anyone any questions or want to put their hand up, or is there anything in the comment box, Tommy, yet?
No, nothing at the minute.
Yeah. If anyone want to ask anything, just put your hand up and Tommy will let me know and I'll stop straight away. Okay, so without going into huge detail, all this information is up online. Okay, if you type in GA15 warm-up, it will give you videos, it breaks it down. Okay. So, and it comes exactly like this, okay? Your squat. What are the key teaching points? Neutral lumbar spine, hip and travel. But obviously, in the practical element of this, we'll be going into a lot more detail. And also in the GA15 workshop. Some of you that are on this probably have it done. Again, there is a practical element for that, okay? So the coach's cues. Sit back in the chair. It gives you everything what you should be telling to them, okay? So you have your squat, your lunge, your T-plane, which is your hinge. You also have a glute bridge for waking up the hamstrings and glutes, okay? So these are just simple exercises that are all in. But then again, if we go back to the 6 here, okay, by something a squat, that's covered, your lunge, your T-plane, okay, and your glute bridge, which is working your pillar and your core and your glutes as well. So they're just 5 exercises there that we've covered from the 6, okay? So now we're moving on from your training to train stage from 12 to 14. It's about getting repetitions and getting functional competency. But when we moved on to the next stage, okay, for your 16 to 17 year olds, let's not try and complicate it, okay? If we know the GA15 warm-up inside out, that is an S&C program, okay? How we develop that from there. So when we went on to the next phase for your 16 to 17 year olds, we said we can add external load, okay? So some of us wrote in there different types of external load. We have resistance bands, we have free weights, so your kettlebells, your dumbbells, also your medicine balls, okay? So if we keep the GA15 warm-up, but let's add in the likes of our resistance band, let's add in our medicine balls, okay? We're adding more of an external load. But what I want you to focus on here is how to design a strength program, okay? The sets and reps are crucial, okay? So if we're looking at here at the top for beginners, we have 60 to 70% of the 1 rep max. If we don't know their 1 rep max, a simple rule of thumb is if they're able to complete 12 easy, it's too light, okay? They should be, yeah.
If you're not a qualified S&C, one could be afraid to show young lads technique. What's your opinion or regards or options?
Yeah, okay. So for the GA 15 warm-up, it is important that we do complete the workshop, okay? The workshop will go through everything that we need to do, technique like that, okay? It's not going to be a thing that we go to the workshop and we're going to be straight into giving GA 15 warm-up perfectly. It does take time to get to know the movements, get to know the teaching points. But that's why the teaching points are there. Where what's wrong with if we wanted to print out these, okay? We print these out. We have a few stations there. We get the kids to work together, okay? Let the kids go through the teaching points while we administrate it, okay? We're not all going to be qualified S&C instructors, but if we do a workshop, we get a fair gist of it, but everything is up online there to tell you. If we give you this squat and you worked on it yourselves, which we would be at the workshops for each exercise 10-15 minutes, we'd have a fair idea by the end of it how to coach it. But these coaching points are up online, and it's about getting there and practicing yourself. Unless we go through the GA 15 warm-up ourselves and talking ourselves through it before we give it to the kids or let the kids do it, we're not going to learn ourselves, okay? But if you're not confident, that's where we're there, that we will be coming in to the clubs to do GA 15 workshops, or there will be times where we will get to go to the clubs for training evenings. Because we have the interns coming in, we'll have the numbers to be able to go out to the clubs. So that's why 2021, it is going to be a very hands-on year. Everything we done this year was online, so next year it is going to be hands-on. And that's why I'm trying to say with this, about a lot of people are on about trying to get programs sent out to the kids or to the likes of the athletes, where let's not complicate it. If we have the one group and we know the GA 15 warm-up inside out, this is where we can start adding that small bit of load. We don't have to go straight into the heavy weights. This is where resistance bands come in, where we're adding external weight, external loads, okay? So, but the one thing I want you to focus on here for strength is the sets and reps, okay? For a strength program, we obviously technique wants to be right. So we want to, for volume, we want 1 to 3 sets of 8 to 12 reps. Okay, so it's up to you what you wanted to do in that. Okay, but between 8 to 12, we're working at strength, and from 1 to 3 sets, that's for beginners. Okay, which they will be when they're moving on to that. Okay, so that's where we're focusing on. If we do want to, if we think down the line, 6-7 months down the line, they're okay with that, then for the more advanced, we work up to 6 sets from up to 8 reps. Okay, so the more sets we do, the less reps. All right, but the one thing we want to do with that, a rest period of 2 to 3 minutes between each exercise. Okay, at least 2 minutes, so they're getting the sufficient rest, they're going back in and they're ready to go again, that they're not too tired. Again, we're focusing on technique here. Okay, so again, strength training prepares you for the more advanced type of resistance training. Again, we're working through the basics, so that's why I not say let's use the GA 15 warm-up for the basics, which we will be using, and then we go on to use our increased external force. Okay, down here is just how to design a strength endurance program. This is more for your circuit base. Okay,
Another question here.
Yeah.
Sorry. Is a set an individual exercise? So.
No. Okay, so a set is, if we have 4 exercises, okay, so if we go on a Tuesday, we're focusing on 4 exercises. When we complete the 4, that's 1 set. Okay, so 4 exercises is 1. If we're completing 4 exercises, that's 1 set. Okay, then you take a bit of a break, you go back and complete them again. That's your second set. So you'll be doing the 4 exercises 3 times if you're doing 3 sets. Okay, If you're doing 8 exercises, when you have the 8 complete, that's 1 set. Okay, but we don't need to be doing every exercise the one night. Okay, we could work on 4 one night and another 4 the next night. Okay, but again, we're using the basis from the GA15, and all we're doing is adding a bit more resistance. Okay, we're not complicating it too much. Okay, we're not, and a simple way of doing that is just by resistance bands or something as a medicine ball. Okay, is everyone okay with that, or have we any more questions? Or does anyone disagree?
Just on that as well, Kieran, Leinster GA do a resistance training course, so we can organise to have one of them organised for the early next year. In conjunction with anyone that's on this course, we'll get an email out to you, and we'll organise it with Leinster in one of the clubs in Westmeath.
Yeah, so that resistance course is actually over 6 days, so it is quite long. Okay, so it is very interesting. And it is good to have, and there will be an external tutor coming in from another county, so they'll be bringing another aspect to it. But otherwise than that, let's just stick to the GA15, and then when we get to the age 16 to 17, then we just add more resistance to the same exercises. Okay, we don't need to be complicated.
It's another thing there, importance of balancing exercises front and back.
Okay, so balance is key. Okay, like we're working on balance from nursery upwards. It's part of our FMS. No matter what exercise we do, no matter what skill you do, you need balance. Okay, so by practicing balance, strength is balance. Okay, but proprioception is balance as well, knowing where our body limbs are. Okay, so we need to be able to know where our ankle or foot is landing so that we can brace ourselves. Okay, so it is important for balance that we're not just jumping ourselves. We need to get a bit kind of complexity in it. So a simple thing that we usually do, the two athletes together, or 2 players together, and both of them are hopping on a leg and they're just pushing each other so that they're getting balanced. They're going backwards, they're going forwards, they're going sideways. They don't know where they're going, so they're working on balance and proprioception.
Perfect. There's another one in as well. Is it harder to introduce S&C to train to compete age if they haven't done anything at train to train age?
Yeah, I'll go back to this. Let me take 2 seconds. So obviously training to compete age, yes. Okay. We need to they're going to come in and they're not going to be confident in the movement. Okay. So a simple kind of picture I'm going to paint for you. Okay. So we're asking the players come in at the train and compete stage. So at the training to train stage is where the foundation starts for S&C. Okay. Obviously you have your fundamental movement skills. A lot of that works more skill based. Okay. But for S&C wise, our training to train phase is the foundation. Okay. So if we have no foundation and we go to the training to compete stage where we're adding in weight, so we're adding more of an external load. So our external load are the foundation or the walls of a house. So if we don't have a foundation in a house, the more blocks or the more weight you add on to the walls, it's eventually going to collapse. It'll be fine at the start, but the higher you build them walls, the heavier, the more pressure that's going to be on the player or athlete, it's going to collapse at some stage. Okay, so it's very important that we get them confident in the functional movements in that training to train stage. Okay, does that answer the question?
I said so, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we go back up here. So the guidelines for the GA15. Okay, so some of us are asking, well, how much do we do, or when do we do, or what? Okay, so when we're training, so between activation and mobilization, okay, we do it 1 to 3 sets before training, okay, of 8 to 12 reps. Okay, so it depends. I'm not going to go through all of them. They're all there online. Okay, there is a lot on it. Okay, but For activation work, especially for training, if they're coming in from school, they're sitting down all day, hunched forward, mobilization will help mobilizing the joints. We do 8 to 12 reps, okay? For power and speed, we do 2 to 6 reps, okay? So when we're talking about power, it's about our plyometrics, our jumping, okay? By introducing them to power, your plyometrics, you're bringing that small bit of power into it, and speed work, okay? Plyometrics works on your speed. So obviously with power and speed, we're putting more force on the muscles or onto the body. So we're not going to do as much as them as we would with the activation and mobilization, okay? So, and then for a match, obviously we're not working them as hard. We do 1 set from 6 to 8 and 2 to 6, okay? A simple way we can control the reps without shouting and roaring at it, okay, is by the distance of the cones, okay? So the further we have the cones away that they're jogging to and they're doing their exercise between, the more reps they're going to get in. The closer we have the cones together, the less reps. So a simple thing like that, instead of shouting and roaring 8 to 12 reps, a simple thing you can do, bring the cones closer together. They're not going to get as many reps in, or bring them further away from each other, they'll get loads of reps in, okay? But a little thing like that, when it comes to the practical side of it, we can talk through that more, okay? But these are just guidelines we want you to focus on. For training, 1 to 3 sets. For a match, 1 set, okay? Activation and mobilization. Okay, so these are just some sample bodyweight exercises we had earlier on this year. We have them up on Twitter. They should be still up there as well, okay? So there's simple exercises that everyone could be doing. Body weights, okay? Body weight squat, push-up, T-plane, plank, counter movement, jump, okay? We're working on the 6 different movements, okay? And then the day 2, we have lunge, med ball, push-up, okay? We're getting our push, T-plane again, glute bridge, and bird dog, okay? There's very little we can do body weight, but again, we're covering the 6 movements there. They're up on Twitter, and again, if we're confident in them moves, we can add the likes of your medicine ball, we can add our resistance bands. So these are the exercises you will be doing in the GA 15 as well, okay? And you can use it as, this is what I'm talking about, using it as a kind of as an S&C program, okay? Especially now people are at home, they mightn't have weights. Muscles have to be kept strong. If we stop training them strength-wise, they will weaken, they will grow smaller. So it is important that we keep them strong. Okay, so order progression of the exercises. So this is the order we want to focus on when we are progressing the exercises, okay? A lot of people will go straight in, how do we make it harder? We don't want to make it harder by just adding weight straight away. There's different ways we can increase the progression. So increase the complexity of the exercise, okay? So challenge their functional competency, okay? So simple thing like the lunge. We do a forward lunge. The athletes are confident in that, they're flying with it. We want to make it harder, but we don't want to add weight. Let's make it into a reverse lunge, okay? It has to make them think. They're not confident on it, and you'll be surprised how challenging that could be if by just making it a reverse lunge, the players have to think different. We're working the same muscle groups, but it's just a different movement, okay? Increase volume, okay? So instead of 10 reps, let's do 12. Instead of 12, let's do 15, okay? And third of all, increase load, okay? So increasing load is increasing the weight or increasing the external resistance is third on the list, okay? So it's a long way down, okay? So we want to get 1 and 2 right first before we go into increasing load, okay? And then finally, for more advanced, you're increasing fatigue. So by increasing fatigue, a simple one is you're making the muscles tired. They're sitting down against the wall. You're into your wall squat, hold it for 2 minutes, then you go into your squat exercises. The muscles are fatigued before we even start. Okay? Now, is there any other questions on the strength side of it just before I quickly go through the conditioning? We only have about another 10 minutes left and then we go into our questions.
Nothing at the minute, Kieran.
Yeah.
Just a second, maybe not typing in there.
Give another 15 seconds, 20 seconds. I don't want to hold you up from seeing Man United qualify tonight, so.
I say plow on.
Yeah, so we're just going into the conditioning side, okay? So with this, there is a lot of stuff that is in it, okay? It's coming from Leinster as well, but that's more into the resistance training side of it. You're going into a lot more detail. But there's 3 or 4 things I want you to take out of this. It will make a big difference to the athletes and make a big difference to your coaching, okay? So we're going to go through planning and programming, physical demands of Gaelic, and conditioning intervals, okay, methods. So periodization is very important when we're going training, all right? So we have 4 different periods there. So your preparatory stage, this is where we're getting ready to kind of go into our season, okay? So this is where we have high volume but low intensity, okay? When we're starting off any season, we want to have high volume, but the intensity needs to be low. We don't want to be starting the other way around because we're not going to be able to maintain that intensity, okay? Also, our technique of training, we start off low. This is where mistakes are going to be, okay? But as we can see, as the season goes on, there is going to be a period during your transition period. This is where they flip, okay? We see here the last line on the right. We need to be peaking during competition period, okay? This is where the intensity needs to be high and the volume is low. So higher intensity trainings, but shorter training times and less trainings, okay? Where we have high load, we train 3 or 4 times a week for longer periods, but it's not as high intensity. So as the season goes on, we need to flip them. Okay, so we can see by that simple graph there, the training, so our football or hurling comes in there, the more and more we use towards the competition time. Okay, and it's a simple graph. There's no need to go into too much detail of it, because the main thing we see from this graph is if we start the intensity too early or a high intensity too early, we're not going to be able to maintain that through our 8 or 9 months period, okay? The intensity has to be high as we're coming into competition time, the more game specific. Okay, so this is where the intensity thing comes into overtraining, all right? So when we train or we do a conditioning session, we don't automatically get fit straight away after that session, okay? The recovery period is where, or your super compensation period is where the body adapts and comes back better or stronger from the day or the training session before, okay? So if we look on the left here, the arrow pointing up, we have capacity or well-being, okay? This can also be performance or it can be fitness. We have our time. So this is where coaches need to follow the FIT principle, okay? The frequency, intensity, time, and tempo, all right? So we have a base level of fitness. After the load, or after our training session, we see there we have load. After a training session, our body breaks down and is at your bottom there, okay? So with that, obviously the tougher the training session, the lower that's going to go. So we have a recovery time to try and get back up over the baseline. If we don't, so the 2 people can focus on that. First of all, the player getting the right nutrition, right amount of sleep, right hydration, foam roll and stretching has a huge impact on it, okay? But if we're the coach's side of it, he needs to time the training well, okay? If he's coming back too early, or the player, which you can put a lot of onus on, doesn't do the right recovery, he's not going to adapt or fully adapt to the training session he's done, and he's not going to get back up over the base level. If that constantly happens, we can see here the red will keep going down and down. So our performance, our fitness levels on the side gets lower and lower, even though we're training and training and training. So if we're in the red or the less we don't follow the right protocol, but there is a reduced ability to accept load and an increased susceptibility to be into injury. Okay, the line we want to follow is the blue line. So there is a big focus on coaches for timing of trainings, but the main focus on this is the players for nutrition, water, hydration, sleep, and obviously recovery methods. So it's a great thing to try and show your players that there is a lot of onus on them. We can only train and give them so much, but it's up to them as well to do their part. Okay, so what are we training for? Gaelic football can be described as an invasions field sport, which requires players to perform repeated, unpredictable bouts of high-intensity exercise are interspersed with light and moderate activity in response to the pattern of play. All right, so there is no real pattern of play in Gaelic. Players have to adapt, or they have to it's unpredictable, so they have to be ready to be high intensity, ready to run for that minute. So it's very important that we cover all conditioning strategies. Okay, so you have endurance training, you have interval training, or how we can combine the two of them, or your mixed approach, but we can comply the three of them into our small-sided games. Okay, we don't always have to just go running without the ball. We can do a small-sided games. So there is a lot of information here that there's no need to go into huge detail for, but there's 3 or 4 parts I just want you to get out of each slide. We only have about another 5 minutes left. So long intervals. The one thing I want us to get out of long intervals is how long a long interval is. Okay, so long intervals class from 1 to 4 minutes. Okay, so from that we can go running. So we can get them to do 1K. We need to get it in 4 minutes. It's a long interval. Or we can play a small-sided game for 4 minutes where they're constantly moving, they're constantly high intensity, low intensity for your 4 minutes. It still counts as a long interval, and it's a good way to get game fitness up without just doing loads of running. All right, so when do we do this? So how long a long interval is and when do we do this is very important. Okay, so this is for your off season and early pre-season. All right, obviously off season to be doing individual training, so long intervals we do in 1 to 4 minutes. So you could be covering from 400 meters up to a kilometer. Okay, but it's just the time we want them to do. Okay, from 1 to 4 minutes. When do we do this? Obviously off season and early pre-season. When we're in our pre-season, we're all training together. We can do it in small-sided games. Okay, so we have our active long interval and our passive long interval. So the only difference with that is our active long interval is during our rest, we're active. Okay, we're moving, we're jogging. Our passive long interval, passive means we're just resting, we're stopped. We don't need to, we're not doing anything. All right?
Good question there,
yeah.
Frank.
Yeah.
What do we do when majority of the players are playing / training for club and school and some multi-sports? They may be going 6 days a week, which is a lot of the teenagers now.
Yeah, that's where we come back to this here. Our load, okay? Do we need to be going, if they're after training 6 days that week and they're coming to us, do we need to be playing small-sided games? Probably not, okay? Then we focus on a light skill session. We can add in a bit of recovery, add in a few of the S&C exercises if we want, okay, that they're doing the movements, okay? It's up to us to be clever if they're after playing 2 or 3 games that week, that we're not playing games at training, we're just focusing on skills, focusing on recovery, or we can get that small bit of S&C in, okay? So it's little things like that, or else we're going into this overtraining syndrome, okay?
Just on that, Kieran, I'd say about the coaches that just ask the players, like majority of them might be 14, 15, 16, so they'll answer you, and like get in contact with their managers, or if they're coming to training with dirty knees already, they're obviously going to have to play in school or something else. So ask them the question, what have they done? And then base your session around that.
Yeah. Okay, so when we come into short intervals, okay, so short intervals, how long are they again? We want to focus on this. This is 0 to 60 seconds. And then when do we do this? This is late preseason. So this is probably where we're going in. We've seen the graph is your transition phase is late preseason, and we're going into in season, okay? It's going to be a high intensity, okay? If it is a high intensity, we want a ratio of 1:3, okay? Work to rest. So if they do have a high intensity for 1 minute of a small sided games, which can be very tough, they need to get a minimum of probably 2 to 3 minutes rest. Okay, that for us to get the benefit of the high intensity, they need to be getting appropriate rest. Okay, so we have here down at the side intensive, which will be easy, normal, which will be 1:1, or extensive, which is very, very hard, working for 30 seconds, you're off for 15, okay? But if we're going into small-sided games, because there is a lot of impacts and stuff like that, we need to be giving them sufficient rest. But the one things I want us to get out of this is how long is a short interval and when do we do it, okay? When it comes to the practical side of it, we'll be more into sets and reps, okay? But it's up to you then at the end. What we don't need to be focusing on is the intensity here, 130, 120. That's our MAS, okay? So that's just different calculations we'll be looking into. But for us coaches, development coaches, we just need to be looking at how long, what's the difference between a short interval and a long interval, and when do we do it, okay? And finally, we're going into our speed work. Okay, another 2 minutes. Finally, we're going into our speed work. So when do we do this? So this is late pre-season. Again, we could be looking at this into our transition phase or period, but more importantly, in season. We don't need to be doing this during the high volume phases, because it's going to be short and snappy when it comes to speed work. Okay, so you have two different types of speed work. You have acceleration and max velocity. Okay, so acceleration we work on obviously to improve our acceleration, which is important for GA. Okay, and the distance that we work for acceleration is 0 to 30 meters. Okay, so the one thing we want to look at here is our rest. So if we're working on acceleration, we need to be doing it at 100% every time. So in order to make sure that the athlete is doing it at 100% every time, they need to be getting sufficient amount of rest. So what we do is for every 10 meters they run, they get 45 to 60 seconds rest. So a simple thing, if they were on 30 meters and we're giving them 60 seconds rest per meter, they get 3 minutes rest. And that's needed to make sure that they are getting max acceleration when they come back. If they're doing 3 accelerations, they need to get the 3 of them 100%, or they're not getting the benefit out of it. So that's why we need to be giving them up to 3 minutes rest between each one. Okay, same with max velocity. Max velocity comes after acceleration phase, and it's important that we do practice this, because we'll only reach max velocity in a game 2 or 3 times. But the reason why we have to train it, because when we do hit it in a game, the muscles have to be prepared and ready for it, or else injury can be caused. Okay, we're never going to do max velocity with a ball, so we wouldn't be working on speed work with a ball. Okay, so again, distance is 30 to 60 meters, but the rest period is mostly important here. Again, for every 10 meters we run, again, it's 45 to 60. So even if we're giving them 45 seconds rest, if we're running 60 meters, it's 6 times 45 seconds. If we're running 50 meters, it's 5 times 45 seconds. So if we can just take that out of that, again, because we're not going to reach max velocity if we only give them a minute. So if we're training it, we want to be able to reach it every time. So we don't want to be doing 3 max velocity sprints and they're getting a minute in between each one, because they're not going to reach max velocity. You're not training it. Okay, so that's really it for me. We're just nearly an hour on the button there. Have any questions? Again, when it comes to the practical element, we will be going through a lot of this again, but it'll be more hands-on and we'll learn a lot more. But we just want to give you the emphasis on what we're focusing on here. If anyone wants to come in there, put their hand up or unmute, they can come in there instead of typing it out. We'll just do a couple of minutes of questioning and we'll go from there then.
So the first one is, will this presentation be shared? Yeah, so we have it recorded, so we will share it out to anyone that missed it. You can send it on to you if you want.
Yeah, so it will be recorded. So if you want to go back through anything, it's all there for you. Okay, again, we're here to help you as best we can. It is hard through these times, but when we can get the practical elements up and going, we'll be getting them going. So is there any questions? If you want to unmute, come in there. Another two minutes of that. I hope we did cover as much as we could for you. Again, I keep focusing on the practical. We'll learn more from that.
Question there for the speed work. Someone talking?
Yeah. Going ahead there. What did you say, Tommy?
Just someone for the speed work. What are the reps?
If we go back into the presentation here, I'll just get it up here. So again, we don't want to be focusing too much. So for acceleration, we can do 3 to 8 reps, again, because it's short distance, but we're getting 90 to 2 minutes rest in between time, and sets 1 to 3. But for max velocity, we do a lot less. It's only 1 to 2 sets, maybe 4, okay? I wouldn't be going straight into I'd be starting off at 1 and then increasing it as the season goes on, okay? So always start at the lowest, especially if you're not sure where they are. But again, the rest is the most importantly. With max velocity, they need to probably be getting about 3 minutes rest between each one. So we're not going to do loads because they need loads more rest. It's going to be very important that we're not going to be doing 15 minutes of sprint because they'll probably be resting for 12 of it, 13. Okay? So we could break it up. How you do that? Break it up. Simple thing, do three at one stage, then go in to do 2 or 3 drills and then come back and do another 3.
Gary, you have your mic open. I don't know if you want to ask a question. Michael can ask a question.
Can I, Tommy?
Yeah, work away, yeah.
Just on the rest periods in between the accelerations and the sprints as well, the 30-60 meter sprints, you're talking 4 or 5 minutes. That's just pure sitting around resting. There's no kicking about a ball or hand passing or.
Well, you can have something passive, all right, or you can have something slightly active. That's where you can work on your skills. So that simple thing, like they're not even like a slight jog isn't going to have an effect on it. The reason why we want rest is because they're not going to reach it every time if we're working in at giving them a minute and a half rest. So simple thing was you could have them in pairs, kicking left and right foot from 4 or 5 yards for that 2 minutes, 3 minutes. You don't have to have them standing idle. We can be working on different skills that way. Hand passing left and right hand. Now you can have them standing there resting if you want. There's no problem, but use them 2 or 3 minutes to work on left hand, right hand, left foot, right foot, just standing 3 or 4 meters apart from each other.
Yeah, perfect. No, just in my experience of teenage boys and what have you, they'd be wrestling and messing and acting the book.
Well, that's
that's good. No, yeah.
The adults will even do that.
Yeah. Hear you. So, thanks, Kieran. Thanks.
No problem.
Another question here from Michael Kelly. How closely related to knee and hamstring injuries in older players is poor S&C as younger players? Some clubs with a lot of older players breaking down.
Yeah, again, a lot of that S&C is a huge effect on injuries. Okay, and the main reason we do S&C is for injury prevention. So if we don't have right S&C, there's more of a risk we're going to get injured. That's why the GA15 is important for even adults. And it's the same again, a lot more injuries probably nowadays than there was back 15, 20 years ago. Because there was a lot probably out working on buildings, there were plasterings, they're up and moving about. Where a lot of it now is office jobs. And it's the same as the kids in school. They're sitting down all day in office jobs. Maybe some of them are driving an hour in a car to train and home from work. they're getting out of the car after sitting an hour in the car. Your muscles are going to be asleep, your glutes are going to be asleep, your hamstrings are going, they're going out and training and not doing the right warm-up, not doing the right activation work. And that can have a huge effect then on injuries as well. So S&C is a huge aspect, but the likes of that office jobs that we're sitting down in schools can have a big effect too. So that's why the GA15 is important for activation and mobilization.
Well, if anyone has any more questions, you can open up your mic or type them in. We've none at the minute.
Yeah, well, look, we're an hour and 10 minutes on there now. So what we'll do is, if any have any questions, don't be afraid to email us, or even if you know Tommy or know myself, don't be afraid to ring us. That's what we're here for. Our emails will be up on the system as well, but Tommy will be sending out this recording, and don't be afraid to get in contact with us. But look, we'll be in touch with you for the practical element. Again, stay safe and have a good Christmas all if we're not talking to you before then. Okay?
Perfect. Just want to say thanks to Kieran for huge effort as well. And as he said, stay safe, and we'll be chatting to you also. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Tommy. Thanks, Kieran.
No problem. Thanks.
Enjoy the break. Cheers.